As elections give the citizens the chance to make their political decisions, constant demand for quality leadership from those they voted into office.
Look at us now, there is nothing, we are starving. Tinubu should please do something.
It's also important to having a Nigeria of everyone's dream. Join ᴏᴏᴜᴜᴜ as it takes to task seasoned analysts, opinion makers, business professionals, and politicians on issues around politics, policies, governance, and leadership every Monday to Friday from 4 to 5:30 p.m. on your super dial mainland 98.3 FM. We'll welcome you, roommates, as we discuss the situations.
Good evening, welcome to the Situation Room on mainland 98.3 FM. I'm doing the best I can to be as excited as possible as we are very rapidly counting down to Christmas and ultimately the end of the year. It's the 18th of December 2024. It's the Wednesday edition of the Situation Room, and as you know, what we're doing is discussing happenings around the country. Just like the title depicts, whatever you consider to be a situation that is worthy of conversation, best fam. The Situation Room is Mondays through to Fridays from 4 p.m. all the way to 5:30 p.m. That's about 90 minutes of conversations. We get to speak with analysts, we get to speak with experts, we get to speak with stakeholders across different sectors and strata of our economy, and most importantly, we get feedback from you. A whole 30 minutes is dedicated to listening to you, getting your feedback, getting you to give us your conversation that we're having. But the format remains the same. We get to speak to an expert and then we get to speak with you as well. Well, for the program today, we're going to have 30 minutes of two sessions. The first one is going to be a conversation around the agricultural sector and the power sector. We're basically looking at the topic of corruption as the bane of sectoral development. And the two sectors that we're going to be talking about very briefly in 30 minutes is, well, the power sector and the agricultural sector. Yesterday, if you listen to the newspaper review, we sort of made it the focus of the day. We spoke about the power sector, we spoke about the agricultural sector, and as you know, ʀᴅᴜᴜᴜ had quite a lot to say about the power sector. He spoke about the rot that was going on in that sector. Not to worry, before we transition to the next program, I would play you that particular soundbite so you can listen for yourself to what Senator ʀᴅᴜᴜᴜ had to say about the power sector, the privatization and all the corruption that was enmeshed in that privatization deal, amongst many other things. And then you can for yourself understand that there is something wrong within that sector, especially with the tariff increase, the GENCOs and their problems with the gas suppliers. In fact, the gas suppliers have said that they would not be supplying gas to the generating companies until they pay up their debts that runs into billions of naira. So what is going to be the fate of the average Nigerian if the generating companies are unable to function because they are owing money to those who supply them gas? And you understand that all of their infrastructure is run via gas. So if there's no gas, how do they run? If they do not run, how do they generate? And if they don't generate, how can they distribute the discos now? How do they distribute power that has not been generated? 12 times this year, the grid has collapsed. That is all the indication that you need to know that something needs to happen in the power sector. And the minister, Adelabu, as much as he's telling us to be optimistic, they're doing everything that they can to make sure that the power sector becomes functional. Well, there's still a lot of questions about the efficiency or the viability of the plans that they have for the power sector. Well, enough of hearing my voice. Let's introduce Adeyemi Saka, who will be joining us this evening for at least 30 minutes as we look at the corruption that has prevented the development of the power sector and also the agrarian sector. Adeyemi Saka, a pleasure to talk to you anytime. Good evening. Thank you for joining us.
Good evening, How are you doing? It's been a while.
Thank you. Yeah, it has been a while. I don't think we've spoken this year on air. I don't
We
think
have.
we have. No.
We have.
We have? Really? Okay.
Yeah, but it's just finished the black people for a while.
I did not. I would never. You're one of my favorite people in the world. I would never do that. Anyways, thank you so much for joining us this evening. So, with the time that we have, let's get straight into it. We're talking about corruption in the power sector and how corruption has also affected our ability to provide enough food for the people sustainable, and also how we've not been able to maximize our agricultural sector such that we can benefit from export. But let's start with the power sector, because I believe that is one of the most significant issues that we need to address. Let's talk about corruption in itself, first of all, and the historical context of corruption in Nigeria. We are a country that is over 60 years, and there are many other countries that have had the same time, even less resources, less weather conditions, less human capital resources, but somehow they're doing better than us. How is it that corruption has been able to find its way to the point of becoming a stumbling block in our national development in the general sense of it?
Well, I'm going to borrow my late father, my late dad's word, God should bless his soul. So I keep telling when I was young that corruption is an English word. So for it to be in the dictionary for there to be a word called corruption to describe an act, that makes Englishman is also corrupt. So why am I saying that corruption is not specific or peculiar to Nigeria? It's a global phenomenon. Because when you have human existence and social contract and all that. But I think what we should be asking ourselves, why do we have this kind of, wicked, can I say, a form of, corruption that is infused with wizardry and witchcraft. Because there's a kind of corruption practice in this part of the world it's in the name. And that's why things get out of that. But now, to break it down to this sector, I probably would not say corruption is what is affecting or probably disturbing the agrarian sector. When it comes to the power sector, I probably would say it's greed, which is also an offshoot of corrupt practices and corrupt tendencies in beyond, to an obscene level. Now, let's even break it down to a law of, snippets or probably some, bit on the piecemeal of this topic. We came up with banding a lot, categories of electricity production or consumer. Band A, Band B, Band C. And an average Nigerian consumer is never protected by a lot of other regulatory bodies. The Band A, for instance, is paying in Lagos, you're paying 209 naira 50 kobo per kilowatt. Band B is paying 66 naira 50 kobo per kilowatt. And Band C is around 40 something naira. Now, the question I'm asking is, what makes the production of a kilowatt that high for Band A than Band B? I think the cost of production should be constant. Because if it's the same input and output, it's the same power out, it's the same turbines and whatever that's pushing out Band A, energy is the same thing that's pushing out Band B. It's not as if you have a different plant, different source of energy, or,
Hello? Hello? Oh, we apologize for that interruption. We're going to try to reconnect with... Oh.
Yeah.
We lost you there for a few seconds.
What is that?
We were unable to hear you for a few seconds. Please proceed.
Okay, I said, it's not as if the concept of the process and the production channel for Band A is actually different from the production of the plant for Band B. You are coming from the same. So you ask yourself why that increment in tariff over 200%. Now, away from that, now look at the GENCOs and the DISCOs. And when people like Oshiomhole comes out to talk and to appeal to the sentiment of Nigerians, I laugh. Because we're in this country when Oshiomhole was the exploitation and the massive content in the power sector. And Oshiomhole campaigned for that party the election in 2019 and never campaigned for a continuum of completion of state status in 2023. So what does this mean? And if you have to them that they pay 16 billion whatever dollars spent in Obasanjo to produce power, convert it to inflation, the 16 billion they've been shouting now is probably nothing than maybe $900 million based on the inflation that the APC has brought upon Nigeria as a country. Now, someone wants to make about the efforts and the plans to sell the power plant, which was done. The president of Muhammadu Buhari came on board. we just report to the master plans and this and everything. Cancel the law of things. We are awarded it. And we are here. Now, for an average of band 8, because I fall in schedule of band 8 users, we are projected to have 20 to 24 power supply daily. But there are days that will go a week without power supply. And that doesn't bring about a reevaluation of what I'm paying for time. There's no sort of compensation. So, whether you might like it or not, the distribution companies are milking Nigerians and making profit. And it's because also we can't look beyond having a central national grid. Power distribution, power generation should be decentralized. Power distribution, power generation, power, even the marketing of power, it should be decentralized. It should even be what a private company could walk into and invest. Forget about what they tell you is on the concurrently. We are producing, we're creating an environment for private sectors to work in. You cannot. I stumbled on a template called micro power hydro generation. I can tell you that micro hydro power generation can produce between 0 kilowatts to 5 kilowatts. 10 kilowatts. We have 774 local governments in Nigeria. There's only a local government in Nigeria that doesn't have a waterway. The pre-assembled plants and everything will take 5 weeks of installation. As at that time, it was around 25,000, 30,000 euros. I probably will not know the cost now. And that could be done, and we can actually have an aggregate of almost, like, say, 300 or 400, whatever megawatts. Yeah, it produces from 0 kilowatts to 10 megawatts. Especially when it comes to an hybrid solution. So the easy to power solution in Nigeria is not rocket science. We are talking about megawatts. Some countries are talking about gigawatts. Geothermal can give us. We can have states that will give us geothermal energy for the source or kind of power. The probably will name Ogun or Yᴏ because of the sedimentary nature. We name Ekiti. We name Kogi. We can even name Zamfara. But are we just stuck on these gas and power and probably even coal power? Yeah, people say coal is phased out, but there are still some things that could be done. So it's not just about corruption, it's about the laziness of the government, successive government, or probably a deliberate plan, because of any covenant they struck somewhere, to probably keep punishing Nigerians. Because Nigerian problem is being perfect.
I want to, speaking about Nigerians being punished, I wanted to ride on that wave that you've created. As at 2024, there's an estimation that 50% of electricity users in Nigeria do not have meters, and that means millions of households, millions of businesses across the country, small businesses, use estimated billing. So 11 million people are not metered. And I know that there was some sort of initiative to make sure that at least 60% of electricity users, if not 80%, are metered before the end of the year. Now Nigerians are saying there's some places that they've not had lights for sometimes even 4 consecutive months, not a single time that their bulb have come on. But at the end of the month, they get bills to pay for electricity, and they're wondering, how exactly are we supposed to pay, or how did you come about this calculation for us to pay if we did not even use the light? Dear Ms. Aka, talk to us about how people, or how this notion that there's a deliberate attempt to make sure people do not get their meters so they can continue estimated billing. Do you think that there truly is a possibility that this is happening, or the regulatory body, for example, maybe doesn't have enough resources to supply meter to everyone?
No, I think I'll probably give you 2 instances.
Okay.
One personal experience, and so one, I stumbled on a radio program, and the people were calling from these Ojoko Ragsis, that's Alagbado Ragsis. The guy even mentioned the marketer in charge. That throughout 2023, they only had power supply for 4 hours. And you expected them to pay on water. In fact, the person that they had a log. In my own case, And I tell that the government and the military agencies are not doing well enough. It came out with a Kenya Electric, which I probably will mention, came out with a notice that by November 14th of November, those are using a first generation set of prepaid meters will probably have risk not being able to, recharge unless they split it out and get the smart meters. The smart meters came with a residual unit of 100 units, 100 kilowatts. And you decide there's something they call commissioning. So after commissioning, you're going to, recharge your meter. Please, my own meter, I ran out of units the week after it was installed. And from November 24th to like December 7th or 16th, I don't know. Last Friday, I was running on jet.
You're unable to recharge that meter?
Because it wasn't commissioned. And when I tried to seek means to do, okay, fine, please, I can't, this is killing. Pay an average of 20,000 naira daily on fueling and everything. The man at the undertaking office told me that his conscience would not allow him to do that. Because nobody wants to hear that you're the only one living in your apartment. Then the estimated video brings to me in band A between 150 to 200,000 naira monthly.
Wow.
So the greater the number of people that are not metered, the more liquidity and more resources for them. And look at the agrarian sector. It is successive governments paying lip services to agriculture. And whether you like it or not, everything is interconnected. If there is insecurity, there can't be food security because the farmers can't go to farm. And when the farmers can't get to go to farm, we can't have enough to produce, to preserve, and to consume. But this gets isn't about locking up food somewhere, agri-produce somewhere. It's about preservation, conservation, production, and consumption. And so that's what we have. So having done all that, we realize that how many states, these states and Ministry of Agriculture cannot boast of 20 taxes. And my state, where my own state where my governor is more of a socialite and a party goer than somebody attending to the issue of governance, which is the state governor that Abiodun, in his own wisdom, to address insecurity in Ogun State, my governor went on one bazaar sharing to members of House of Assembly. In the state, they have the University of Agriculture, that has an extensive research capability because I think that's agriculture for example. So I know the capability and the capacity of UNAB. This was called UNAB. You did not engage UNAB. You don't engage the Minister of Agriculture. You are distributing land to members of House of Assembly. 40. So please, so when you look at the wisdom exhibited, demonstrated, and applied by those in government, it's not corruption. It's not corruption.
I'm really glad that you brought up the agrarian sector because I did say that today's conversation, right, with Ďeji Saka is going to be the bane of sectoral development, corruption on the power and the agrarian sector. And we spoke briefly about the power sector, the fact that we have millions of Nigerians, 5.5 million of electricity users are still unmetered, estimated billion running into thousands of naira, band A, band B, band C, and they're paying through their noses. Businesses are shutting down. And then with the privatization that happened, in fact, Adams Oshomole has indicated that these things were given to their friends and their cronies. They have no idea how to operate the power sector, and that's why we're seeing all the inadequacies within the power sector. And now let's talk about the agrarian sector as another sector that is going through a very difficult time right now. Insecurity, like you've highlighted. There's also problems of logistics. A lot of farmers, Ďeji Saka, have complained many times that their products are expensive because, first of all, the roads are bad. Secondly, they pay many levies and taxes that are unreceipted. They don't know who they are paying these monies to. Every time they get to a checkpoint, they have to pay a certain amount of money. And then there are the street urchins who attack them and force them to pay other levies as well, or they destroy the goods that they're carrying. There's also the inability to even properly store these things. If they're perishable goods, the fact that they have to spend days on the road trying to surmount these challenges, half of their products are damaged. And so, of course, they have to transfer the losses to we, the end users. I need you to talk to us about all of that. If you say that it's not corruption, then what can we describe all of these actions?
Have recently been unfortunate, that's the word, so joining Ògbómọ̀ṣọ́ to either Ọ̀yọ́ or Ògbómọ̀ṣọ́ to Ìlọrin.
Not recently.
If you have been on that road, no, that means you're lucky. Keep thanking yourself. Because you can even spend a day or two on that road just because of the back portion in the Ògbómọ̀ṣọ́. That is one. Two, if not for the intervention along Mokwa Jeba, that used to cause a lot of damages to goods in water and farm produce. The veneer is good. What about Abia Enugu? What about Cᴏʀʀɪᴘ? What about ACC Lagos? Or how to make it? These are bad news. And now people have to go through ᴜᴜᴜᴜ to bust into the bus at Lawe to take it. Spending more, and then the cost price of the liter of fuel is often around 1,000 per liter. But it's perishable that the government has done investing in facilities to preserve them. If there's something wrong, knows having regional silos, regional processing plants across the country.
Right.
Government finance, government and private ones. But now, if you're setting up any agro-processing business and what have you have to have your make plans for security, make plans for compensation in case of kidnapping and everything. So what I'm saying, it's just not a failure of government, not corruption. There's something called World Food Program, where there's a global effort to tackle hunger and food insecurity and shortage of food and what have you. Please, what is Nigeria doing about its own people? You're thinking of opening the borders. It doesn't even favor. Are you there?
Yes, I'm with you.
It doesn't favor anybody from Benin Republic to import his food into Nigeria. So, why? Because the Republic's currency is stronger than the Naira as we speak.
Can I say something there? A lot of farmers have said that there's been some sort of segregation when it comes to the distribution of materials. For example, access to land, access to credit, access to market, access to loan, amongst other things. And so it's like there's a select amount of people that have access to these facilities, and they're the ones who enjoy whatever agricultural subsidy is offered to these farmers.
You see, when you want to talk about the best way for the government to tackle food insecurity, so the government to be heavily invested in food security and in agriculture. And you will probably start seeing the effect in 3, 4, 5 years. Not like that Padodo that planted rice under 2 months and harvested it under 2 months.
Come on.
We're talking about being sincere, not about like Amosun that had a nice pyramid that was studied. We should be sincere about our policies and programs.
Saka, we'll soon let you go in a few minutes, right? But then we cannot talk about the problems because just like we've said, food insecurity is a problem. Food inflation is currently around 34.60% and it might grow, especially with the rate of things happening right now. Farmers are unable to go to their farms. The borders are still closed, although we know that smuggling is going on. Our borders are very porous, yes. But then local production is dwindling. Importation is also suffering a setback. There's insecurity. There's there's logistics challenges, there's levies and taxes that these farmers have to pay to individuals that they don't even know where they're from or what union they represent. There's post-harvest losses as well. They cannot store, they cannot process, and so they have to dump all of the losses on we, the end users, and that's why we're buying food at such a ridiculous price. We know the problems. If you were to prefer a solution to the problem, in what ways do you think we can tackle these individual problems? Obviously, no one shoe fits all, but what ways or what methods can we put in place strategically that would address the root cause of this problem and ultimately bring about some level of sanity within the agrarian and also the power sector?
Now, let me not be political. And maybe if anybody wants to accuse me of unpatriotism, they are free to. I cannot give people solutions to one, problems they created, so to problems that they claim they have solutions to, that God that prepared them into office, and I'll keep these incompetence in office by giving them free advice or free solutions. No, I will not. The best I can do to Nigeria and Nigerians is to hold my whatever advice or probably suggestions or solutions I have to myself. Let the incompetent bite hard and push Nigerians to the wall, and let Nigerians react adequately by voting them out. And by the time they vote them out, you see a new government on board exhibiting the will and the commitment and desire to serve Nigerians. So we can propose solutions and positive alternative ideas. But I will not be a part of either directly or indirectly to reinforcement and sustenance of failure and incompetence in public office and offices. I will not.
All right then, dear Ms. Saka, thank you very much. But before I let you go, I would like to get your opinion though. The budget is finally been approved. The president has presented it. We watched it today. What are your thoughts? Generally about the budget. 47 trillion. That's the estimated figure. 47 trillion naira is the budget. Is a number of parameters. What do you think about the parameters? First of all, the oil benchmark is $75 per barrel. 2.06 barrels of oil production per day. The exchange rate is 1,400, 13 trillion naira deficit, amongst other things. What do you think about this particular budget, and do you think that will be able to tackle our most prominent problems?
You see, that budget is a budget filled with falsehood, or that promote falsehood and false hope.
How so?
And that's just going to plunge Nigeria into the abyss of economic woes. And I'll tell you why. Very simple. I'm not going to waste your time. We are proposing 75. Earlier this morning I said 77. $75 per barrel for crude. When, as at today, the price of Brent crude is $72 per barrel. So is Nigeria going to cause a global war that will cause the push or a surge and also in the price of crude? When Donald Trump, the president of America, has made it clear that America is going to pump a lot of food into the market. Who does that tell you? I don't even have a freedom to. Secondly, you are telling us that you are pegging the exchange rate to $1,400 naira. No, please, what's the current exchange rate?
About 1617-ish.
So please, are we not having a difference? So are we not having a deficit? And they're proposing a deficit. No, a deficit of almost 13 trillion to borrow that to finance the budget. That's doing an estimate of 8.87 in GDP. That is going to, what we are going to borrow when the reality sets in, is going to cost us like 10% in growth of GDP. Because one, we are losing 200 naira for every dollar we're projecting on the budget. Two, the price of crude might fall as low as $50 per barrel. This time next year, we'll have this conversation. By the time America opens this market, and Saudi too will not be able to ration because Saudi and America are together in this. And with Putin, with Trump coming on board, Putin will sell his oil to new markets. What happens to the price of food?
So you don't believe in this budget ultimately?
So the budget proposition or proposal is fraudulent. Is a packaged lie. And also on an economic reality that can never materialize.
All right. Misaka, thank you so very much. I think that we even overshot the time that you offered to us, but I'm really grateful that for your time, especially the impromptu nature of the invitation. Have a beautiful day. Enjoy the rest of your holidays. I'll still be talking to you anyways. I don't know why I'm saying enjoy your holidays now, but thank you very much for joining the program. Have a nice day.
Keep blessing us with your sweet voice.
Thank you so much. Well, there you have it, the first half of the conversation. I just thought to ask the opinion of the Misaka regarding the budget, because that's what the next conversation is going to be about. I thought to start the conversation by talking about some of the issues that we have to address with its problems within the power sector. You know that once there's a problem with power, it's going to be very difficult to actualize whatever other plans that you have. And people that are hungry are not very productive people. And if food inflation is pushing 34.60% at this time, what is supposed to be the reality of the average person in the coming years, especially with a government that is rather confident in their policies and continue to encourage us to wait before we see the benefit of all of their policies? Well, for the other half of this conversation, Ayyuh Adio will be joining us as we talk about the budget, the 2025 budget. Just a brief analysis about some of the parameters, some of which I highlighted to DME Saka, the reality of these parameters. I mean, $75 per barrel, 1,400 exchange rates, 13 trillion deficit, a planned borrowing of also 13.8 trillion naira as well. That's almost 3.87% of our GDP, amongst other things. And they are projecting, growth of about 4.6%. And analysts are asking questions. How exactly do you hope to achieve a growth of 4.6% with our underlying issues, with the rate of our inflation that is pushing 40%, with the poverty rate that is nothing to write home about? How exactly, with our production level that is dwindling, we don't have access to forex, amongst other things? How do you intend to achieve all of these things that you have put in that budget that has now been approved and presented to the House? Ayyuh Adio will join us right after this break as we attempt to make sense of the 2025 budget of about 47 trillion naira. Don't go anywhere. You're still listening to The Situation Room on Mainland 98.3 FM.
Supported, against the wish of my colleagues, the idea of privatizing electricity. My main argument then was that the beauty of capitalism and of private ownership is that in seeking to make profit, they will render a service. But the danger of public ownership is that whether they render a service or not, they draw on the taxpayer treasury in the name of correcting what is there. I could never have imagined, as it is today, that a private person will collect money for services he did not render. And the Nigerian people are helpless. Even we here as privileged class have had to buy the transformer that I use here in the heart of Abuja. And to install it, I have to persuade, negotiate, and even effect payment to Abuja distribution, whatever, to connect the transformer I have procured personally with my resources. And hereafter, this transformer becomes the property of the disco. And every month, I am asked to pay bill on brand A or whatever.
Under your transformer.
Like you said, sir, every state governors, or most, spend public funds, buy transformers for communities. And then you still have to contribute money. Many of us, very soon, when we go back to the electorate, they are going to tell us that for 1 year, for 2 years, they've had no light. What is the problem? No transformer. And then they ask you a senator to go out and buy the transformer. You look for the money, you buy the transformer. And then they say, NEPA says you have to pay for them to connect the transformer to their grid. If cables are faulty, you buy the cable for them to install it. Even right now, I have requests from several communities asking me to buy the transformer and to get them connected. And yet, sir, the key element in distribution is transformer and cables, among others. So if these ones are now being procured by state government using public funds and individuals using their personal resources, what is the cost that these discos are incurring? Now, worse, the money they claim to have paid Because the logic of privatization was to inject private capital into these services. In truth, they went to borrow from Nigeria depositor funds in various banks, thereby killing some of those banks who have now become the liability of AMCON, which itself is also a contradiction about the logic of free market. And what they have borrowed, Mr. President, since the privatization took place, what they have borrowed through CBN and other sources is 10 times more than the amount they claim to have paid to become owners of those discos. Lastly, sir, as things stand, discos own no more than 60%, quote, own. So it is arguable where the total money you have borrowed from public sources is more than your private capital, whether you can still claim to be privately owned. 40%, as we speak, still belong to the federal government. But, sir, there are no governing councils. There is no governing board for these discos. So, federal government owns 60% of a business, and it has no say in the board of those companies. So, there is no corporate governance. The one of Edo is owned by a pharmacist. The wife is a banker. The pharmacy becomes the chairman. The banker becomes the MD. They mismanage Edo economy, Delta economy, Ondo economy, Ekiti economy, and we are down right now in crisis. Even I, sir, that I don't live in Benin, my bill every month, I can't even afford it. So, Mr. President, I support the motion by my very good friend who lost an earlier motion, thanks to the vigilance of Mr. Senate President and your commitment to protect the poor.
Yes, we're back. It's still the Situation Room on Mainland 98.3 FM, the sound of Lagos. We had a conversation briefly with Adeyemi Saka. We tried to make sense of all the ills going on within the power sector and the agrarian sector. And with regards to conversations around the power sector, we played you that soundbite. That was Senator Adams Oshiomhole talking about the privatization of the power sector. It was done to ensure efficiency within the value chain. But now we have GENCOs that are owing so much money, they're unable to function. And we have the gas suppliers threatening to shut off supply of gas to the GENCOs. We have the TCN that is run by the federal government, but somehow they don't even have enough resources to collect what has been generated by the GENCOs. And then the discos, well, we still have the issue of metering. As you know, 5.5 million electricity users are still currently on estimated billing. And now that we're now with the band A, band C, amongst other things, people are paying through their noses for power that they don't even have. They're paying more money for service, or they're paying more money for a service that is not commensurate with the amount of money that they now have to pay for power that is somewhat non-existent in many places. And I just thought to play that soundbite so you could hear from somebody within the realms of power complaining bitterly about all the things that are wrong with the power sector and with the agrarian sector. As you know, food inflation 34.6%. The commodities available are not even being bought. People do not have the capacity to buy the goods. We don't have the capacity to process, and so there's post-harvest losses. Goods in the market are getting bad. People cannot buy it. People are unable to feed, and this is not a practice that we should allow to continue. But then we're about to move to even the funding of these sectors by means of talking about our budget. Ayo Adio will join us for that particular conversation. He joins via the phone to talk to us about all the things that are going wrong, or well, that we shouldn't preempt the conversation. Well, just to talk to us about the parameters of the budget. Let's talk about all of the things or all of our expectations of the 2025 budget. Ayo Adio, thank you so very much for joining us. Always a pleasure to have you. Good evening, sir. Hello.
Hi, thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. By the way, Ayo Adio, of course, is a public affairs analyst and the managing editor, Avalon Daily. So, the budget has been presented. We saw the president and, the House, all of them, the Red Chamber, they all definitely are on board with the budget, 47.96 trillion naira. And I would like us to talk about some of the parameters. It includes the oil price benchmark of $45 per barrel, an oil production production target of 2.06 million barrels per day, an exchange rate of about 1,400 to the US dollar, and a GDP growth rate of 4.6%. And projected aggregate expenditure for 2025 is around 47.96 trillion, with planned borrowing of 13.8 trillion naira. That's about 3.87% of our GDP. Ayyuh, with all of this, what expectations do you have of the budget, and do you think these parameters are realistic, or there needs to be some sort of review?
Well, I mean, historically, the size of Nigeria's budget has not necessarily had a direct impact on citizens, and it's largely because of how our budgets are designed. They aren't really designed to drive productivity, if you'd like. They are, essentially focused on spending. In most cases, these spendings are, on white elephant projects, on overheads, loan or debt servicing, very little on infrastructural development. And even those that go into infrastructural development are not infrastructure that are needed to drive productivity and growth. They are those that are needed for political exigencies. So that's the reality of our budgets over the last few years. And to be honest, I do not think, I know the budget is christened the budget of,
renewed hope.
What was it called? Budget of hope, I think.
Yeah, renewed hope.
I'm not...
You have 1 minute.
Ooh, we apologize for that. We should rectify that soon.
To a tremendous turnaround by next year. What I can say, however, is that, I would argue that, in most recent times, this will be one of the most realistic projections that I have seen in terms of some of the numbers that you reeled out earlier. When you talked about the fact that, they are looking at the exchange rate at 1,500 naira to $1. I think that's a bit realistic. That's achievable, by next year if we get certain fundamentals right. I think the GDP growth rate is a bit realistic also, given that we've done about 3.2 this year. We're likely to do 3.2 by the end of this year. And to that extent, there's a chance that if our macroeconomic fundamentals improve, we're likely to do 4%.
Your call.
All right, well, we apologize for that. We would get back with Ayyuh in just a few minutes. We apologize for the interruption. It's still the Situation Room on Mainland 98.3 FM. We are talking about the parameters of the 2025 budget and how realistic these parameters are. Ayyuh is a public affairs analyst and managing editor, Avalon Daily. Once we connect with him, we get to the conversation around what to expect from that budget and if we're able to achieve the aim of a growth of 4.6%. For example. Hello.
Balance is...
Okay, I really don't know what's going on. Please, let's take a short break so I'm able to sort this out and we can get straight back to the conversation. We apologize. Still the Situation Room on Mainland FM. My name is Sage Babalola. We'll be back.
Things seem anxious and uncertain. I understand the hardship you face. I wish there were other ways. But there is not. If there were...
In our quest to bring to the table issue-based conversation around nationhood and development, we have made 4 to 5:30 p.m. Monday to Friday the perfect time to welcome you into the Situation Room as we continue to build the narrative about public service and accountability.
Mr. President, this Senate needs to know. Mr. President, this Senate needs to lend its voice to the plight of these people. Mr. President, there is nowhere I can say it except here. This is why I'm elected. If I cannot say these things on this floor, sir, I better resign and leave.
As elections give the citizens the chance to make their political decisions, constant demand for quality leadership from those they voted into office.
Look at us now, there is nothing. We are starving. Tinubu should please do something.
It's also important to having a Nigeria of everyone's dream. Join ᴏᴜᴘᴛᴏ as it takes to task seasoned analysts, opinion makers, business professionals, and politicians on issues around politics, policies, governance, and leadership every Monday to Friday from 4 to 5:30 p.m. on your super dial, Mainland 98.3 FM. We'll welcome you, roommates, as we discuss the situations.
Welcome back. We apologize for that interruption. We have it all sorted now. Aᴏ Aᴅɪᴏ would join us to conclude his thought on the figures that I reeled out regarding the parameters of the budget. Aᴏ Aᴅɪᴏ, please, we apologize. Go on ahead, sir.
I say that some of the estimates seem a bit realistic. If you looked at the exchange rates of 1,500, I think it's a decent projection. If you look at the oil prices that they seem to be working with, it may seem a bit realistic. However, I do have fears that, Donald Trump would want to push oil prices down, for political exigencies in America so that, he sort of gets his 100 days in office running. And of course, lower oil prices will be detrimental to the federal government's revenue. And that would have a negative impact in funding the budget, But I do think it's still, somewhat realistic to watch with the assumption that you're going with. But I do think that the 15% interest rate projection is a bit laughable because I do not see how, in the short to mid-term, that, given the policies of the CBN, they are still pursuing contractionary policies whereby they're still raising rates, to bring down inflation. It doesn't appear to me that the investment, if at all, in the agricultural sector is yielding enough dividend. So we're not ramping up food production at a scale that will crash the prices of food. We're not importing as many cheap food as we should, because if you remember, the order that was given by the president sometime in July to reduce tariffs
and import duties,
import duties on food, had not been implemented for 4 months. And when it was about to be implemented, it had suffered a lot of bureaucratic hurdles, and it's just been hazy basically, and it's not led anywhere. And to even add salt to injury, the prices of food internationally has also soared, and I'm talking about grains here. So it wouldn't do much good for us. And in fact, thirdly, there used to be a time where you could also get cheap food from your neighboring states in terms of Niger, Chad, Benin Republic, or even Togo. Unfortunately, our currency has so weakened that even the CFA, is doing a lot better than our own currency. And so even getting food from neighboring states would also come at a premium. So I haven't seen a clear-cut strategy that will bring down the prices of food significantly over the next 6 to 7 months, that will give me confidence that we're able to bring inflation down to 15%. I think that it's a wild ambition, and I'm not sure that is realistic in itself.
Well,
So I mean, all in all, I just do think that fundamentally, the kind of attention we give our budget, it doesn't correlate to the impact that we're seeing that these budgets produce over the last few years.
do you currently think that the policies of this government, right, in terms of taxation, their desire to grow internally generated revenue, amongst other things, the removal of fuel subsidy, and the many other policies of this government, do you think that they might pose as a stumbling block to their desired GDP growth of 4.6%? Do you think there's a contradiction between their current policies and their desire for economic growth, of course, maximizing this 74 trillion budgets that they have at this time?
Well, in some regard, some of those policies could lead to increased economic activity over the next few months that will lead or push growth to happen, and push it towards 4%. But, like I argued earlier, if you looked at our growth rate as a country, and I'm talking about population growth rate, and you look at other factors, and I'm talking, for instance, birth rates and things like that, you will see that growing at 4% does us no good. We need to grow at an average of between 8 to 10% consistently for close to a decade so that we can double GDP. And that will certainly move us from, I think, presently our per capita income is a little below $2,000. And to move it to about $4,000 to $5,000, we need to grow at between 8 to 10% consecutively for at least a decade. So while 4% growth is progress from where we are today, it's not nearly enough to drive the kind of economic activity, or it's not nearly enough to lift people out of poverty, to create the kind of jobs that would increase wages, that would drive consumption, and generally improve the living standards of citizens. So there's a chance that they will do 4%. There seems to be, a lot more activity in the oil and gas sector. Most of our growth comes from the service sector. And you know that the finance industry has been doing tremendously well. They've been the biggest beneficiary of many of the Mr. President's reforms. And so you're likely to see more growth happen in the service sector, driven by finance, telecoms, oil and gas, and that will be where the growth will come from. But, the kind of growth that will lead to widespread prosperity is when we begin to see significant growth in manufacturing and agriculture. That's where shared prosperity would happen. That's where social mobility would happen. That's where income levels will go up. And that's where significant consumption will begin to rise, across the various demographics. So until that happens, we'll just be papering over, the real problems that we're grappling with, as a country. So, in a nutshell, yes, the 4% is realistic. The president's policies in some instances will lead to us achieving that 4%, but it won't be enough to take us out of the doldrums.
I want to talk about the concerns that have been raised about our borrowing pattern. I think currently we owe about 132 to 135 trillion naira. I think that's how much we currently owe. And the bulk of our budget is supposed to be funded via borrowing as well. And people are worried that our debt profile continues to grow and we do not see commensurate infrastructural development, for example, or sectorial development with all of the borrowing that is coming in. And if we're going to fund this budget with borrowing, isn't that just going to throw us into more problems where we owe too much money and then we do not even see anything that justifies our desire to continue borrowing money? Do you buy into that notion, or you think that it's okay, we still have the leeway to borrow more money as long as we focus on using this for capital infrastructure?
Academics will tell you that we still have a bit of more wiggle room to borrow a lot more than we currently are. The ratios still seem a bit healthy and can accommodate a lot more borrowing. But the problem has been that our borrowing, just like our spending, has not necessarily been targeted, on driving economic productivity, right? It's been it's been missed mostly about, wasteful spending, about covering overheads. In fact, we've also borrowed significantly to also pay our service debt. So once you continue to borrow to do these kinds of things that do not add significant value to the economy, what happens is that we put further pressure on our exchange rates and make it difficult for the naira to gain significantly against the dollar. So what then happens inadvertently is that our budget deficit continues to widen, right? Because, if our exchange rate is not coming down, it means the cost of servicing international loans will continue to increase, and then we'll need more monies to be able to cover the loans that we have borrowed or the loans that we're currently trying to service, which again creates a vicious cycle that further widens our budget deficit and then further crashes the value of our currency. So it seems like we're in a bit of a vicious cycle, if you ask me. And I think the way out of this will be a lot more fiscal discipline, where we're a lot more prudent with resources and we cut back on wasteful spending significantly. If there's a lot of fiscal discipline, and the government can curtail its appetite to spend in the most reckless form, as we've seen government spending over the last decade or decade plus, we're likely to see our budget deficit close significantly. We're not likely to borrow as much as we have borrowed over time. And when we do borrow, we will know that we're borrowing in such a way that it's targeted, in driving growth. That means we're borrowing to fund critical infrastructural projects that will drive economic activity across the country. So that, for me, would be the way out of this. If we continue on this trajectory, would find ourselves in a very, very difficult place, if not between the rock and the hard place, because the cost of servicing our loans will continue to go up, and then we will continue to try to breach our budget deficits by also borrowing more money. And this more money will just be spent on servicing loans and on overheads and on salaries and on things that will not drive productivity, which leaves us essentially in the same spot.
Oh, finally, before I let you go, I know that we don't have the full paper yet to check how much has been allocated to what. I don't have that paper on me right now, but we know that security usually gets the lion's share of the budget. What particular sectors do you think are deserving of more attention? If it were up to you, if you could decide the sectors that should get more funding, especially with this budget, what sectors do you believe that should be?
I think security, education, and agriculture.
Okay.
And I say that because we need to improve national security. Without strengthening our national security architecture, you're not likely to raise productivity, or you're not likely to raise business activity significantly, because it is insecurity that is stopping, improving yield in most farmlands across the country, because people are afraid to either go to the farms or they are afraid to harvest from their farms. It is insecurity that also stops trade among cities, because people are afraid to travel to Kano, to travel to Cᴏʀʌᴜ, to do business, and that also stifles growth to a very large extent. So if we can improve security, it means that you'd have certain states that would actually bring back a 24-hour economy, because they feel safe to do business for longer hours. That means they will need to hire people that will work night shifts. That means they're likely to sell more goods and services and likely to make more money, right? And to that extent, the economy will improve significantly. So I think security is important. And I think agriculture is also very important, because we need to raise productivity in agriculture. And we do that by moving, a significant amount of people that are engaged in agricultural activities from subsistence level to a lot more commercial farming, using tractors and state-of-the-art farming equipment, mechanized farming, if you'd like, right? And that way, we can raise productivity significantly, and then we can begin to tie, agricultural harvests to processing plants, because I think it is processing that will unlock the first layer of wealth, especially, for northern Nigeria, because if they adopt a lot more processing in terms of processing tomatoes from just raw tomatoes into tomato paste, or dry pepper, or processing instead of moving cattle from Kano on the road down to Lagos, they now have slaughterhouses, and the beef is standardized and it's packaged and it's either exported outside the country or within the country. So once we move into processing, it will unlock a level of wealth that will create high-paying jobs beyond the minimum wage for millions of people, across the agricultural value chain, and raise wages and income for these people. So that's why agriculture is extremely important, and education, obviously, so that we can begin to fund the kind of research that will lead to solutions, not just in agriculture,
power,
but in health, in power, and all sorts. And we can also build the capacity of the people that are coming into our workforce. And so these three will be priorities for me. And if we get them right and vote enough resources to them, and make sure that the spendings are tied, to impact, I think that we'll see a significant improvement in the affairs of our nation, in a few years.
Ayyuh, thank you so very much. It's always a pleasure to have you talk to us. Thank you for your time. Ayyuh is a public affairs analyst and managing editor, Avalon Daily. Thank you so very much. I look forward to more conversations with you. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you.
Yes. Well, there you have it, Situation Room for this evening. It's not over if we don't hear back from you. We're going to take a quick commercial break. We come back, we open the phone lines and talk about the conversations that we've had in the space of about 50 minutes. I'm Sage Babalola. Don't forget that the phone lines will be open for you, the social media platforms as well. You can use that to contribute to the conversations we've had. It's a very complex one today, and you're allowed to contribute to all of the conversations. Don't go anywhere. This is still the Situation Room on Mainland 98.3 FM. We'll be right back. Looking for reliable logistics solutions? Welcome to ʀᴜᴜ Global Limited, where logistics is redefined. We specialize in freight forwarding, customs brokerage, local logistics, import and export services, and even travels and tours for seamless, efficient service. Visit us at 13 Adeidowo Street, Aviation Estate, Mafoluku, Oshodi. Call us today at 0814-706-8472 or 0809-578-8867. Send an email at info@ʀᴜᴜglobal.com or visit the website www.ʀᴜᴜglobal.com for more details. ʀᴜᴜ Global Limited, logistics redefined.
As the years they go, we dey work for dough. Some days it's fast, some days it's slow. Many highs and lows, but we carry go. Nothing go stop our doing so. Now the night just spirit, yes we move. With family, there's love at home. We know say Christmas, it don't come over. Blow the trumpet, in parampe. Hello, I go, go, go. Everywhere you go, go, go. Everybody go, lo, lo, lo. We go enjoy, so we make us celebrate. It's a yellow, yellow Christmas, so we celebrate. When you hear the bell, everybody celebrate. It's a yellow, yellow Christmas, so we celebrate. We do it anyway, any place.
Disconnect from distractions. Go make a difference this season. Merry Christmas from MTN.
Looking for reliable logistics solutions? Welcome to ʀᴜᴜ Global Limited, where logistics is redefined. We specialize in freight forwarding, customs brokerage, local logistics, import and export services, and even travels and tours for seamless, efficient service. Visit us at 13 Adeidowo Street, Aviation Estate, Mafoluku, Oshodi. Call us today at 0814-706-8472 or 0809-578-8867. Send an email at info@ʀᴜᴜglobal.com or visit the website www.ʀᴜᴜglobal.com for more details. ʀᴜᴜ Global Limited, logistics redefined.
àti pé fún ìdíkòwò mẹ́fà tí mo ti ní mo ní àǹfààní ẹyọ kan sí i.
ewu lẹ gbé ṣírò lè báyìí.
mo ń ṣe òǹkà ayé tí mo lè ní nínú ìdíkòwò bílíọ̀nù márùn-ún ni nítorí ABN Holdings ìtẹ́pẹpẹ ìdíkòwò fún àwọn tó jẹ́ onípín ìdíkòwò wọn lọ́wọ́lọ́wọ́. èyí já sí pé àwọn tó ti ní ìpín wọn lọ́wọ́ báyìí ní àǹfààní láti ní ìpín kan sí i lórí ìpín mẹ́fà tí wọ́n ti ní. ní ìpín ọjọ́ ọ̀la pẹ̀lú ABN Holdings ìpín ìdókòwò yìí ìdókòwò bẹ̀rẹ̀ ní ọjọ́ 4 oṣù kọkànlá di ọjọ́ 12 oṣù kejìlá ọdún 2024. kàn sáwọn olùṣòwò ìpín ìdíkòwò rẹ tàbí ẹ̀ka ilé ìfowópamọ́ First Bank. bákan náà ni o lè ra ìpín rẹ lórí First Mobile app rẹ. ABN Holdings ní ìpín nínú ọjọ́ ọ̀la.
As the years they go, we dey work for dough. Some days it's fast, some days it's slow. Many highs and lows, but we carry go. Nothing go stop our doing so. Now the night just spirit, yes we move. With family, there's love at home. We know say Christmas, it don't come over. Blow the trumpet, in parampe. Hello, I go, go, go. Everywhere you go, go, go. Everybody go, lo, lo, lo. We go enjoy, so we make us celebrate. It's a yellow, yellow Christmas, so we celebrate. When you hear the bell, everybody celebrate. It's a yellow, yellow Christmas, so we celebrate. We do it anyway, any place.
Disconnect from distractions. Go make a difference this season. Merry Christmas from MTN.
Hey there! there? Yes, you. You just won 5,000 naira cash. And you, sitting by the side, there's 1 month Showmax subscription to watch the Premier League waiting for you. You behind. Of course, you're not left out. How does 1,000 naira airtime and 2,000 naira Uber discount sound? All this could come true when you buy the No Unwrap and Win pack. Open it, look for a cube with a 6-digit code on its wrapper, text the code to 8011 and follow the prompts to stand a chance to win any of these instant prizes. Promo valid from July till December. Terms and conditions apply. Get extra value on the No Unwrap and Win pack. No, eat for good.
As the years they go, we dey work for dough. Some days it fast, some days it slow. Many highs and lows, but we carry go. Nothing go stop our doing so. Now the Naija spirit, yes we move. With family, there's love at home. We know say Christmas, it don't come over. Blow the trumpet, parampe.
Hello, go, go. Everywhere you go, go, go. Everybody go, lo, lo, lo. We go enjoy,
So make we celebrate. It's a yellow, yellow Christmas, so we celebrate. When you hear the bedroom, everybody celebrate. It's a yellow, yellow Christmas, so we celebrate. We do it anyway, any place.
Disconnect from distractions. Go make a difference this season. Merry Christmas from MTN.
If you love amazing Nigerian movies, action, laugh out loud comedy skits, or gripping shows and series, serve yourself all the drama, passion, betrayal, action, and laughs on YouTube with the YouTube buffet plan from MTN. Enjoy over 10 hours of YouTube streaming for just 500 naira and over 4 hours for 200 naira. Dial *312*800# to activate now. YouTube, made for you.
For every 6 shares I hold, I get one more.
What are you doing?
I am counting the numbers I get from over 5 billion shares. FBN Holdings is giving existing shareholders the chance to buy more shares at 25 naira each. This means that you can get one new one for every 6 you own. Don't miss out. Own a share of tomorrow with FBN Holdings rights issue. The offer opens from the 4th November to 12th December 2024. Visit your stockbroker or any First Bank branch to get started. You can also access the offer directly on your First Mobile Banking app. FBN Holdings. Own your share of tomorrow.
Mainland 98.3 FM. Don't touch the dial. 98.3 FM. Don't touch the dial.
Things seem anxious and uncertain. I understand the hardship you face. I wish there were other ways, but there is not. If there were,
in our quest to bring to the table issue-based conversation around nationhood and development, we have made 4 to 5:30 p.m. Monday to Friday the perfect time to welcome you into the Situation Room as we continue to build the narrative about public service and accountability.
Mr. President, this Senate needs to know. Mr. President, this Senate needs to lend its voice to the plight of these people. Mr. President, there is nowhere I can say it except here. This is why I'm elected. If I cannot say these things on this floor, sir, I better resign and leave.
As elections give the citizens the chance to make their political decisions, constant demand for quality leadership from those they voted into office.
Look at us now, there is nothing. We are starving. Tinubu should please do something.
It's also important to having a Nigeria of everyone's dream. Join ḥɔ̀kpɛyɛmí as it takes to task seasoned analysts, opinion makers, business professionals, and politicians on issues around politics, policies, governance, and leadership. Every Monday to Friday from 4 to 5:30 p.m. on your super dial. Mainland 98.3 FM will welcome you roommates as we discuss the situations.
Thank you for staying with us. Welcome to the program. If you're just tuning in, you missed about 15 minutes of conversation, but not to worry. I believe that you can catch up if you just stick around and listen to the contributions that will follow. This is the Situation Room on Mainland 98.3 FM, the sound of Lagos. My name is Sage Babalola. We were privileged to have a conversation with Demi Saka. With Demi Saka, we spoke about the power sector, and we also spoke about the agrarian sector, or the agricultural sector, if you like, the corruption that goes on within that sector and how it has become the bane of development of these two essential. We have written on that piece of paper is what they have to pay, or they risk being disconnected. Businesses are packing up because of the high energy cost. As you know, fuel prices still border around 1,000 naira or even more, depending on the part of the country that you are. In what ways can we rectify all the things that is wrong within the power sector? And I played you that soundbite from Senator Adams Oshiomhole, who spoke about even the privatization effort of the government to ensure efficiency within the energy value chain has not yielded any benefit whatsoever. The discos are barely functioning. The Jankers are holding on for dear life, and the TCN, another story completely. And for the agricultural sector, farmers are complaining about their inability to go to the farm. For example, insecurity, they have to pay taxes to bandits, and even those that are able to successfully plant and harvest, because they don't have access to funds, access to infrastructure to store and process their goods, they suffer roughly 47% post-harvest losses. They suffer from problems of logistics. The roads are bad. They also have to pay taxes and levies to people on the road at every stop or every point that on the road. They also have to ultimately transfer the cost that the losses that they have incurred in the course of transporting these commodities to we the consumers. And we're currently running at food inflation that is 34.6% and is projected to go even higher if we continue in this trajectory. How then can we solve the problem of corruption within the power sector, within the agricultural sector? And you might wonder, where does corruption fit into this conversation? Well, farmers are saying some of them don't have access to the subsidies that are being given to farmers. There's some sort of selection process that happens allegedly where certain individuals are entitled to access the fund for their business. When subsidies are being given to farmers, they don't get it. The small farmers don't get it, and they're the ones that need it the most. When fertilizers are being distributed, small farmers don't get it. It's usually the friend of somebody within government allegedly that gets these resources. There's no access to fund, there's no access to loan, and so even the farmers that are willing to weather the storm and still plant, they suffer all of these setbacks. They don't have money, and transporting their goods, it gets damaged because they don't even have the infrastructure or know-how to process this food, and we the consumers of course have to suffer for it. How do we deal with the corruption within the power sector and the agricultural sector, and how can we rectify these problems? And then I also had a conversation with Aýo̩ Adio, public affairs analyst and managing editor, Avalon Daily. We spoke about the current budget, the 2025 budget of 47.96 trillion naira. That's what we're going to be working with for the year 2025, but very interesting parameters for the budget. The oil price benchmark is $75 per barrel. Oil production target is 2.06 million barrels per day. Don't forget that we still have a little bit of a problem when it comes to crude oil production. We have to supply our now functioning Port Harcourt refinery. We also have obligations to Dangote. We also have export obligations. We have loans that we're paying back with crude oil back loans that we also have to take care of, and we're barely even meeting our OPEC quota of around 1.7 million barrels. So there are questions about this target of 2.06 million barrels. How then are you going to achieve it? The exchange rate, 1,400 naira to the US dollars, and I think currently the naira to the dollar is around 1,600, 1,700 thereabout, and they're projecting the GDP growth of 4.6%. Although the IMF that says that Nigeria's economy is projected to grow around 3.6%. I'm talking general economic growth now, not necessarily just the GDP. But then the projection for the GDP is 4.6%, and Aýo̩ Adio is of the opinion that it is possible, although we need to grow more than 4% before the average person on the street would enjoy the benefit of this budget and all these parameters. Don't forget, we have a deficit of around 13.8 trillion, all of which will be funded by borrowing, and our current public debt stands at about 135 trillion naira, which might increase if the naira continues to crash against the dollar. What hopes do you have for the 2025 budget of 47.96 trillion naira. Do you think this will be able to solve our problems? And also, in what formula do you think resources should be distributed across sectors? What sectors do you think are deserving of more resources so we can see a ripple effect that would affect the average person on the streets? This is a recap of all the conversations we've had this evening, and I'm doing so for the sake of people who probably just joined us. If you'd like to speak on these issues, you can call us directly. 091360000410 is the number that you call. You can join the live stream. 091360000430. I'm sorry for WhatsApp or text messages. The live stream is actually at Mainline 98.3 FM. Drop your submission using the live chat option. Good evening. Thank you for joining us. Tell me your name, where you're calling from.
Madam Safe.
Yes.
Okangbelina.
Welcome.
Thank you. The budget presentation, the budget they presented, please help me. What was the name of the budget, please?
Budget of renewed hope.
Budget of what?
It's renewed hope, right?
You see the problem? Budget of renewed hope. Which hope are you renewing? Look at where we are now. Somebody cannot feed his family. Fuel is very expensive, and you will never bring fuel back to where you met it. And you are calling it budget of renewed hope. Is he intending to bring back fuel to 200 naira where he met it? You just give a name to something that does not work. Is it deceiving us?
What part of the budget are you concerned? What part of the budget are you particularly concerned about?
The name only.
Oh,
that name is what is my problem with it.
Okay.
How can you call it budget of suffering, so that we will know that we are suffering? Don't call it budget of what kind of renewed hope? You are calling renewed hope for not something that does not exist. Which hope have you renewed since you came? That's the problem. Bye bye.
All right, then. Thank you very much. We appreciate you. Let's talk to other people. 0913 6000410. Let's have a conversation. The corruption within the power sector, the issues within the agrarian sector, and also the budget that has been presented. How confident are you in that budget, and would you be able to tackle the many problems that we have? Are you also optimistic that we might see economic growth of about 4.6% as projected by those at the helm of affairs? I'm trying to take the calls. For some reason I'm unable to, and I don't know if this is a connection problem on my end or it's from your end, but just keep trying. There's really nothing I can do from here. 091360000410. Please turn down the volume on your radio. Hello. Hello.
How you doing?
I'm well, thank you.
Yeah, Kenny from Sulere.
All right, go ahead, please.
Nah, my sister. That budget is something else. Even, in fact, I don't know where we are. 4.6 GDP. Even the 3.3, some 3.13, we don't even understand how they came about that one. Why are they baboozling us what was it, the MBS? They now came again 1,400 naira per dollar. It's not making sense. All these things are not realistic. Do you understand? Yeah, they are not realistic. You say crude oil, 2.02 million barrels per day.
Yeah.
I don't understand. Is there any war again? Any other war? I mean, Nigeria wants to create artificial war in eastern region.
You don't think it's possible for us to produce that amount?
Is that?
You don't think it's possible for us to produce that amount?
This thing is just voodoo.
All right.
It's a voodoo budget. It's a voodoo lie.
All right, thank you very much. We appreciate you. So I did have to go check. Now, the 2025 budget of restoration, securing peace and rebuilding prosperity is at the core of the Renewed Hope agenda. So the 2025 budget is christened a budget of restoration, securing peace, rebuilding prosperity, the core of Renewed Hope agenda. So I went there to look for its name and its surname for all of you that are interested. Okay, Cᴏʀʀᴜ, I hope you've heard it. I've given you the name of the budget, the middle name, and the last name of the budget. I hope your opinion about the budget changes upon hearing that. Let's take more phone calls. Hello.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening. Tell me your name, where you're calling from, please.
My name is Shino. I am calling from Ajegule.
Welcome.
Okay, so I listened to your analysis, and I heard your point of interest for this evening's conversation. Let's be honest. It is not just about budget presentation. Let me start from the budget.
All right.
There is an attitude that is already established and sustained by this government that shows clearly that, look, you can budget. If you do not have the required discipline to follow through, you will always get the same negative results. You get the gist, which has been the bane of government in Nigeria. We talked about the electricity sector. You see, everything, you look at it, everything is just the same. It's just the same. It is not about projection. The last budget, you ask yourself, how was it implemented? What was the implementation? What were the points of focus? So you get the picture. So it is not about budgeting. What needs to change is the attitude of the people who comes up with the budget. That's the first thing that needs to change. Until that is changed, nothing will change. We will keep doing the same thing over and over again. And by this time next year, just sharing our life, you'll be on this show talking about the same thing.
All right.
That's my contribution tonight. It's just very tiring, really. Very tiring.
Thank you so much for calling. We appreciate you. Hello. Please, I need you to turn down your radio.
Lady Sage.
Yes, good evening.
Thank you, my dear. My name is Prince YS. Calling you from Odo this afternoon.
All right, welcome. Go ahead, sir.
Yes, when the budget committee coming out like this, the previous year, we do have optimism that it will give us better things for us. And this budget that we just read to us this afternoon by Mr. President, I'm hoping it will be a better thing for the country. Because the money, the mention, the one for education, the one for defense, the one for health, all these things, if it is implemented later, I'm telling you, it will get better. So, if anything we wanted to do, if we do away with corruption, that particular thing will get better. But our opponent in this country today, when you talk of the way they read the budget to respond you, the implementation is the problem. But for me, I'm very hopeful of 2025 that it is a better thing for Nigeria, better thing coming to Nigeria. This floating of Naira, taking away of subsidy, it brings a lot of pain. But this is someone at the best of time to now live from our roots. We suffer a lot as a problem of hunger in the country. This budget, if we can tackle the insecurity, if we can service food production, if we can do better for Nigeria, I think we are very hopeful, we are praying for better Nigeria. And all of us, for join hands together to lift Nigeria up. Leave it to you, my dearest age.
All right, thank you very much. 091360000410 is the number to dial if you'd like to join in the conversation that we're having today. We're talking about the power sector, the agrarian sector, and ultimately the 2025 budget, 47.9 trillion naira, and all the parameters and the optimism or the hope that you have for that budget. Do you think this budget in its implementation at the end of the day would be able to cater to the many problems that we've unfortunately found ourselves as a country, and also the GDP growth projection of 4.6%? The realism behind that projection is what we're trying to have you talk to us about this evening. Permit me to pause for a bit so I can read Facebook messages, and I'll come right back to the phones. On Facebook, Benjamin Issa says, "Good evening, Sage. I don't know why people are so exalted about the budget presentation of President Tinubu." You probably meant excited. I don't know. I'll just assume you meant excited about the budget presentation of President Tinubu. The 2024 budget, what came of it? Nothing but suffering and pain. The government always looks for words and tag for the budget and campaign. Words like renewed hope. Now the budget of time of suffering is over. Will the budget reduce the price of the pump price of fuel that has brought pain, hunger and suffering as we are today as a nation? If not, forget whatever assurance and promises Mr. President is giving from his comfort zone. If the president is ready to help Nigerians, he should reduce the pump price of PMS to 500 naira. Today's rate is more than the birth rate. Today's death rate is more than the birth rate because of hardship and the high cost of living, which ought to be at, I don't know. Benjamin from Shogunle, I struggled. If you'd like to resend me that message, and so in case I didn't read it properly, I'd appreciate it. I really did struggle. But Christopher F. Young here says, good afternoon to you, Sage. The reason why Nigeria has not been making any reasonable progress is because of corrupt leaders, especially the ones we keep bringing into the system, most especially in important sectors like power, petroleum, etc. And the most dangerous part of it is each government always comes and allows it. Right from the Obasanjo era down to today's present government, they're still patronizing corruption in the Nigerian sectors. How do you explain to somebody that the sitting president of a country would go and commission a project that has not been completed? A former minister in this country once went to bring an aircraft that belongs to another country into Nigeria and nobody punished him. I ask, was Nigeria designed to run as a corrupt country with corrupt leaders? God bless Nigeria, my country. Amen. All right, thank you very much. We appreciate you for your insight. You can keep sending in your messages. Mainland 98.3 FM is how you find us on Facebook. Just click on the live chat option and you can send your messages. I'll be sure to read them, not to worry. But then let us see this. Okay. Never mind, I can't read that message anyways. 09136000410 is the number to dial. We can take only one more call before we call it a wrap for today's edition. If you'd like to call, now is the time to do so. And I'm trying the best I can to actually answer the calls, and I think it's a connection issue. I'm so sorry. Turn down the volume on your radio. Hello.
Yeah, good evening.
Good evening. Welcome. Your name, please.
My name is Dixon. I call from Ayevo.
All right, go ahead, sir.
I want to say it's unfortunate that each time our government reads their budget, they tag the budget a name that people will be looking. Like a caller said, he said it's not the budget, but the implementation and the willingness of the leaders to do the needful. Okay, you tell me, how do you not just bring in a budget without any policy? We have to, a government can just say, this is what I want to focus. Nothing like that. There is no policy. There is nothing to say, this is the policy of the government of today. And you are reading a budget of trillions. At the end of the day, you know that by what someone just said, by 2025, it's the same thing. Let the government have focus. Bring out policy. Let us know where we are going. We already know where we are coming from. We are coming from bad suffering, low economy, bad economy. Let there be a hope now. Their slogan is a renewed hope. We are nobody. Nigeria has not seen any renewed hope in this government. That's not like any renewed hope. Rather, it's suffering. Why not do the needful? Let Nigeria be happy for once. Cut down on your own entourage. Cut down on your expenses. We have been shouting, but they refuse. Just adamant. Call down he came up with the point that he said, I will call down my entourage, people that will go with me. Today now, how many have they called down anything? The government should show leadership. Nigeria is the best country in the whole world. When a leader take a step, you see how Nigeria will follow. Go to the children of Ďagbon when Ďagbon was there and Buhari fell our hand. Look at the way Nigeria will follow through. We know where we are going, and we don't know where we are coming from. Now, we don't even know where we are going. When you wake up in a day, the next day, you don't even know what will happen next.
Thank you.
Pre-shopping policy, everybody just do it anyhow.
Thank you so very much. Thank you. Have a wonderful day. We appreciate you. We're out of time. We appreciate you for your insight into today's program, and we have listened to your feedback. Hopefully those at the helm of affairs or those in charge of all these sectors that you've highlighted problems in do the right thing. And well, the budget is it's new. Let's see what is to become of this budget, if it will be able to stem the tide of economic issues that we're unfortunately grappling with in the country. I'm Sage Babalola. Do well to listen again tomorrow, same time, same station. It's 4 p.m. to 5:30 p.m. They should be here, and then we'll continue the conversation. Don't go anywhere. There's still more for you. The news bulletin at 5:30 would be on your airwaves soon enough. Thank you for being here. It's Mainland 98.3 FM.
seems anxious and uncertain. I understand the hardship you face. I wish there were other ways, but there is not. If there were,
in our quest to bring to the table issue-based conversation around nationhood and development, we have made 4 to 5:30 p.m. Monday to Friday the perfect time to welcome you into the Situation Room as we continue to build the narrative about public service and accountability.
Mr.